when they're in extreme levels of fatigue while they're standing up. But it's hard to have long-term sleep when you're standing up unless you're being held on all sides by some kind of force, like in an extremely small room that's the size of you, which doesn't sound like a pleasant sleeping experience anyway. So you are probably going to have to at least sit down. I have a little bit of expertise in this field, actually, because I've slept at a lot of jobs. I used to work at Steak and Shake on the graveyard shift, and what I would do when the restaurant was empty is I would sit down at a table in the very back of the restaurant, and I would sit down at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would put my head on the table. And do you know what bad things would happen as a result of me going to sleep, Kimmy? None. Nothing. It was fine. Nothing bad happened. When somebody came into the restaurant at 3:45 in the morning, they would come over and tap me on the shoulder and ask if I could take their order, and I would be like, yeah, of course. No big whoop.
I feel like they're probably kind of expecting it. Truck drivers all over America are quite used to waking up their servers and being like, hi.
Yeah, totally. I think that, look, obviously in a perfect world, you don't sleep on the job. But if you have to, find a quiet place to sit. Even during your 15-minute breaks, maybe find a quiet place to sit if you can, assuming you get 15-minute breaks, which you're legally supposed to. Find a quiet place to sit, lean against a wall, and at least close your eyes. Give yourself a little bit of a break, because it is really hard to work standing up late at night, go to bed, and find a way to shut off your brain fast enough to get enough sleep, to wake up, to go to college. It's a lot. So get that rest where you can.
I used to try and get songs stuck in my head on purpose when I was kind of between like the 9 p.m. and like 11:30 p.m. shift at Top Man, like the very end of that shift in retail. And I would just get a song stuck in my head and would like aggressively sing it to myself for those last few hours, and that kind of worked, but then it made me hate those songs forever.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that sometimes then you dream about the lyrics, or at least I do, and it feels like you've got a song stuck in your head even while you're sleeping, which can be annoying. But to get back to your question, Kimmy, I regret to inform you that it's going to be tough to sleep standing up like a horse.
Speaking of music, we've got a question from Amelia on a similar note. Dear John and Hank, I listen to a lot of music, especially on my 1.5-hour bus ride to school every morning. Every time I listen to Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, everybody I see walking out the window is walking in time. People step either on every beat, on every second beat, or halfway between each beat. Sometimes I find someone who isn't walking in time, but after a few seconds, they change to match it. I am very confused. Is this something to do with our heartbeat, or does everybody have an 80s disco playing in their head? Another one bites the dust, while the other one rides the bus. Amelia.
That's a great sign-off, Amelia. It occurs to me, Rosianna, that as you and I are recording this, nobody in the world yet really knows about what a central role Queen, the band, plays in Hank's novel, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing. Oh, you don't know either.
I don't know that either.
I forgot that you haven't read the book.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, so I guess I can talk about this now. It's not really a spoiler because it's in the first 20 pages, but there is a very important part of the book that is contingent upon the Queen song Don't Stop Me Now, which I'd never actually heard. I mean, I'd heard it, but it never meant anything to me until I started reading the book, and now I listen to the song all the time. Here's my theory, because I've been listening to a lot of Queen. It's not that everyone walks either on the beat or halfway between the beat. It's that there's the exact right number of beats to give you that illusion. That's my theory. I will say, when I hear that song, Another One Bites the Dust, it is one of the most percussive pop songs I've ever heard. And so I think part of it is maybe that you feel the beat of it. You feel the pulse of the song a little more than you usually do in pop songs. I don't know. It's an interesting observation, though, Amelia. Related, you have a 1.5-hour bus ride to school?
Sounds like a very long time. Every single day?
Well, gives you time to listen to podcasts, I guess.
I love it. But I do get that feeling when I'm listening to music. I look outside and I think, oh, everyone's walking in time. But then I just remember that I'm in the Truman Show and it's not going to be okay. And that the whole world revolves around me.
Right. Right. That is the other possibility that I hadn't considered. That reminds me that Alice has recently gotten pretty into music, especially the artist Pink.
Oh.
It's Alice's favorite color and Alice's favorite musician. And one of the things that Alice says whenever a Pink song plays, like a Pink, Like anytime a Pink song comes on the radio or anytime I play one in the car, Alice immediately just shouts, "It's my soundtrack!" And it is a wonderful thing to have a soundtrack, to feel like when you're just walking through your day, there is music that is accompanying you. I was thinking about that because it's a new experience. Like pre-Walkman, you couldn't have that experience. Like you couldn't feel like it's my soundtrack wherever you were walking around, because you either didn't listen to music or you were forced to listen to music with other people. So
You had to wind up the gramophone and
right, yeah,
and let it spin.
or learn to play the piano or something.
Yeah, have someone follow you around with a massive piano. It's also another great option. That's true, though. I remember one of the early stories that I used to write, I used to add in the soundtrack to the book as I was going, and I looked back and found some of them, and it was entirely Britney Spears.
Really?
Like 25 Britney Spears songs per story that was lifted from the Babysitter's Club. Yeah.
Wait, you wrote Babysitter's Club fan fiction?
Essentially, but I was also just plagiarizing.
That is something I did not know about you.
Yeah.
We both love the Babysitter's Club then.
Yeah, very much. Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley High were like my earliest books that I read. I stole them from my sisters.
They were also tremendously important in my development. I may have told you this before, but when I was in college, I had a huge fight with my college girlfriend, and I was like crying and inconsolable, and I read Claudia and the Sad Goodbye to make myself feel better.
It's a heartbreaking story.
It is. It's a beautiful story. And really, listen, I haven't read the Babysitter's Club books in a long time. I think Claudia and the Sad Goodbye might have been the last one I read. But I read like 70 of them at least 10 times a piece. And they so deeply shaped my understanding of what stories can do and of what narratives exist for.
My favorite was their island adventure. It was one of those like special ones, and they all get stuck on an island. And they have to fend for themselves for like a weekend or something. I loved that. I also loved Boy Crazy Stacy. That was another solid classic.
I think the Island Adventure one might have come out after my time, but I love Desert Island books and I love Babysitter Club books, so maybe it's time.
That's great.
Hold on, I'm going to Google it. Babysitter's Club, Desert Island book. Babysitter's Island Adventure. It's got 3.8 stars on Goodreads, which probably means it's great.
I find that all my favorite books have 3 point something on Goodreads.
Well, almost every book.
Right.
Or 2 point something. See all buying options. It's available for a quarter.
Bit pricey. Was Claudia your favorite then?
Claudia was my favorite, but I don't know. I am really, really excited to read the Babysitter's Club Desert Island book. That is right up my alley. It mixes my 2 favorite genres of literature.
Oh, you know what? Claudia's elegantly casual.
Yeah, Claudia, actually, just look on all the Claudia book covers, like all the ones where Claudia's the star, and you will see the definition of elegantly casual. In fact, I'm looking at the Babysitter's Club super special Island, the Babysitter's Island Adventure right now, and Claudia looks phenomenal. She looks super elegantly casual. I don't know how we got on that topic. Weren't we talking about Queen? But anyway, here we are. Let's move on to another question. All right, this one comes from Claire, who writes, Dear Brothers Green, I've recently dived into the world of tending to bonsai trees. I'm extremely happy and have great fulfillment in caring for these tiny trees and all the details required. I've done extensive research on their specialized care, and I've received many recommendations to join my local bonsai club, but I'm hesitant to attend a meeting. First off, I'm a college student, and by the looks of their newsletter, I would be the youngest person there by many decades. Also, I'm afraid that their expertise will embarrass me. There is so much to learn in this field, and I'm just beginning. My tiny accomplishments... I get what you did there. Claire. My tiny accomplishments are pinching leaves successfully, whereas many of them have 20 years of experience in 20-year-old trees. How should I approach this club meeting? Should I even go? Crystal clear, Claire.
You should absolutely go.
Yeah, you have to go.
This is a high-quality learning experience, for one. You will learn so much about tending to bonsai trees, but I also think it's really fun to go into things that you don't know everything about and also things that are intergenerational. I think too often now we kind of hang out with people who are our age, and we don't really have that many opportunities to meet other people from our communities, and local clubs are such a great way to do that.
I totally agree. Look, there's a tiny percentage chance that you're going to go to this thing and all of the people are going to be super rude and the group is going to be extremely insular and you won't like it and you'll never go again. But the overwhelming majority of the time, what's going to happen is that these people who have been hanging out together for 20 years and who are all 75 years old are going to be so flippin' psyched to find out that there is a young person interested in bonsai trees. It is going to make them so happy. They will love hanging out with you. You will learn from them. Their wisdom, not just about bonsai trees, but about everything, will become a part of your life moving forward. I think I totally agree. It's so important to have intergenerational friendships. And there really aren't that many opportunities for them outside of workplaces. So I think it's super important. When I look at my life, it's people who were a generation older than me who really helped me the most in not just in my career, but in terms of becoming the person I became.
And I think something I read in your email is this fear that you have nothing to offer them, that it's only their expertise and kind of you, this inexpert person. But from the sounds of it, I feel like you could improve their newsletter, for one. You have skills that you can bring to the table too. And if it is all people who have done it for 20 years and their trees are all 20 years old, they may have forgotten how to talk about the new experience of beginning it. And I'm sure they'll really enjoy and relish having that early experience of bonsai tending revisited.
Yeah, that's the other thing I'd say, Claire, is that there's a pretty good chance that you are going to find a novel or a movie out of this story. It's such a good setup for a novel. You meet someone who's 40 years older than you and who is, a font of wisdom, and then they die, at the end of Act 2. But then it turns out that you're stronger than ever.
Just like the little bonsai tree you have learnt to tend for.
I mean, we already wrote the movie for you, Claire. Which reminds me that today's podcast is brought to you by bonsai trees. Bonsai trees, they're so little.
This podcast is also brought to you by Jane Austen. Jane Austen, with her acerbic wit and acid directions, she'll cut you down.
Today's podcast is also brought to you by Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. Another One Bites the Dust. It's your soundtrack whether you like it or not.
And finally, today's podcast is also brought to you by Gmail. Gmail. No, sorry.
Yes, that sounds great. Every time I read a short email now, I assume that Gmail wrote it and my feelings are hurt. We've become cyborgs. As you know, I've given you this rant already, but I'm worried that we're already cyborgs, Rosianna. The ship has sailed. I'm
very frustrated that it keeps telling me to say yes to things when I'm trying to say no to them as well. It won't even give me a no option. It will give me 3 yes options.
Yeah, it's like Google also has a hard time saying no.
It wants me to put things in its calendar.
Yeah. That's right. If you don't have a densely scheduled life, you might not need your Google Calendar as much.
And then they can't serve ads to me.
And then they're deciding what we do with our lives, what we look at, what we value. Moving on.
I'm upset.
Dear Hank and John is supported by Simple Contacts. Need contact lenses? Simple Contacts is the convenient way to renew your prescription and reorder your contacts from anywhere in minutes. They have all the brands and types of lenses you're familiar with. Simple Contacts also offers a vision test for only $20. It's designed by ophthalmologists, and every test is reviewed by a licensed doctor. And while this is a great deal, this is not a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. The contact lens prices are unbeatable. Standard shipping is free, and best of all, they're offering a promotion to Dear Hank and John listeners. Get $20 off your contacts at simplecontacts.com/DearHank20 or enter code DearHank20 at checkout. That's simplecontacts.com/DearHank20 or enter DearHank20 at checkout.
All right. This next question comes from Aiden, who writes, Dear John and Hank, as a high school senior, I am currently in the process of being swallowed whole by the college application process. As part of this, I have to write a lot about myself, something that I'm not great at, mainly because I really don't want to come across as obnoxious or overconfident. How do you draw the lines between not having enough self-confidence, having the right amount, and being a jerk? Oh my God, I'm learning. Aiden.
I love that. I think it's so hard to apply for college or university because you really have to sell yourself. You have to go hard on, like, here are all the best things about myself. And you have to do it kind of shamelessly, to be honest.
Yeah, right. You have to make the case for yourself, which also involves making the case that you're not the kind of person who makes a case for yourself. It's so meta and difficult. My wife wrote the most amazing college essay. Sarah was an amazing student in general, but the college essay that she wrote was just phenomenal because it was about all of these things that she had done and all of these things that she hadn't done and how she wanted to go to Northwestern so she could do all of the things that she hadn't done. And so it didn't come across as overconfident at all. It was like, I've done this and this and this and this and this, and I may have gotten great grades and I may have volunteered at this place and that place, but I haven't yet, learned about 20th century women artists doing self-portraits or whatever. It was such a good essay. Like, even today, I couldn't write that good of a college essay. So, Aiden, just steal that idea from Sarah.
I think it's a good approach. I can tell you some things not to do. Don't make lofty statements about truth, which is what I did a lot of. I felt like I had to imitate my idea of what a university student was like when I was applying for things like that. And I also felt like I needed to give something really personal and kind of share something really close because then that's how they would know about you. But you have to remember that the people reading your essays have never met you before. They don't know about things that you do in your free time. They don't know about any of the ways maybe your friends would describe you. And that's another thing I'd say is ask the people around you how they would describe you and try and build something from that. But yeah, really do... I hope, start to inhabit this place where you start to believe, actually, I am really worthy of getting into this place. And often the things that you feel like can come across as obnoxious and overconfident are really just you giving yourself a really good chance.
I would also say, though, I agree, but I'd add that it's okay if you don't get in to your dream school. And we hear from so many people who write into this podcast who are either devastated that they didn't get into their dream school, disappointed by the college that they're attending, or so overwhelmed with anxiety about where they're applying and whether they're going to get in and what that means for their future. And it is a big deal and a big moment, and I absolutely understand that. But at the same time, you don't know what your future looks like. You don't know really whether it's good news or bad news that you got into this college or that college or didn't get into this college or that college. I look back at my life and I don't think things would have gone as well for me necessarily as they have if I'd gone to a school that was quote unquote better because I went to the right school for me.
Yeah, and I was so devastated when actually we knew each other then.
I remember.
I got rejected from Oxford, which was my, I'd spent the last 10 years fantasizing about going to that school, and I got the rejection 2 days before Christmas, and I was so upset. I dyed my hair red. I was like, I'm just going to rebel now, and then I stopped at dyeing my hair red because I felt like that was kind of enough for me. But actually, it was probably I'm not going to say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Obviously, it sucked, but it was a really good, pivotal point for me in learning what was important, and also just kind of, this really bad thing can happen that you were dreading, but things go on,
Yeah, your life goes on, but also you can get a good education at universities other than Oxford.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in fact, you did.
It was okay.
Well, yeah, I, for one, am really glad that Rosianna didn't get into Oxford because I suspect if she had, then we wouldn't work together today. So I won the lottery.
Thanks, Oxford. Okay, we have a question here from Katie, who says, Dear Hank and John, or John and Hank? John and Rosianna. I was friends with this girl, let's just say her name is Patricia, in most of my childhood years. However, we both went to different secondary schools and inevitably drifted apart. We were both quite popular in primary school, but my popularity has decreased to a whopping number of one friend, whereas her popularity rate has increased by a lot. She's beautiful, sporty, and lovely. I'm the complete opposite. Out of the blue, Patricia invited me to hang out with her after 3 years of not speaking. This is a stressful situation enough, but she invited me to a theme park with her dad. It's going to be me, her, and her dad. I don't even know her dad. What if he's horrible? What if she's horrible? We have literally nothing in common, so what the heck do we talk about? I don't sing the song Raw, Katie.
Katie, have you checked to make sure that you're not inside of a young adult novel? I think we have to consider the possibility. It's just such a good setup, Katie. It's even better than Bonsai Claire's setup in terms of the narrative potential. You got to see this as an opportunity for a great story, whatever happens. You've got a fascinating cast of characters here and an amazing setting in the form of an amusement park.
I think it's perfect. One thing I would say, the only thing that I would say is the bad thing about this setup, or maybe it provides narrative potential, is that there's going to be 3 of them at a theme park, and most roller coasters, there's 2 people sitting side by side.
Right.
So you've got like the dynamic of who's going to sit next to whom, or maybe it's a way into meeting a stranger at the theme park, befriending them, and having them come along on your journey too.
There you go. The love interest.
The love interest or the Merlin figure.
Right, yeah. Dumbledore.
Dumbledore loves 80 miles per hour. He can't help it.
This is great, Katie. You've just got to lean into this experience because whatever is going to happen is going to be fascinating. The closest I ever had to something like this, I was a huge nerd in middle school, and for some reason I had one magical day ice skating with the 2 coolest girls at my middle school. They were so generous to me and so nice to me. They were never like this before or after, but they were so nice to me that day. They held, I couldn't ice skate for crap, of course, but they held my hands as we ice skated around, and it wasn't romantic or anything. It was just lovely. It was generous and kind. I don't know if their parents had told them to be nice to me, but it worked. And I honestly, it was a fire that burned in my center all through middle school. And so when things were bad, I would be like, well, at least there was that one time at the ice skating rink, and maybe life will go back to that someday again. And it did. So maybe it's going to be that. Maybe it's going to be terrible. But either way, it's going to be a great story.
And the best thing about a theme park is there's no shortage of activities. There's no kind of empty time, really, because it's always kind of like, should we go on the next roller coaster? Should we go get this strange plastic food? There's always something else to do.
Except for the 6 hours that you spend in line talking to each other. But that is where you go deep, Katie. That's where you say, maybe on the inside, Patricia doesn't feel like she's sporty and lovely and super popular. Maybe she has some gnawing insecurities that she needs to talk to you about. Maybe her dad... I'm just not that interested in parents.
Maybe he can fetch the burgers.
Yeah, maybe he'll be sort of blandly supportive, like the parents in all of my novels, but a little bit overly anxious. That's my prediction.
Or not there.
Yeah, right. Or dead.
Anyway, you're going to have a great time. Or not.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. You do need to go, though, because it's a great opportunity. I don't know what kind of opportunity yet. Please keep us informed about this, especially if you discover that you are inside of a YA novel, because that's a book I want to write.
We are open to buying life rights from any and all of you.
So true. It's $1 a piece.
By buying, we mean suing.
That's right. We already own Claire's life rights. We claimed them. All right, Rosianna, we have a question from another Katie who writes, Dear John and Hank, this year, all I want for my birthday is a cordless vacuum cleaner. I've been there, Katie. I want it so much I have dreams about it. Anyway, my problem is that I live with a roommate who is not willing to invest in one. And normally I don't mind sharing my things, but I'm already sharing more than I'm comfortable with her. And as she's extremely clumsy, she has also already broken several of my belongings. Am I being too petty if I don't want to share the Hoover of my dreams with her? If she's not willing to go halvesies on it, should she still be allowed to use it? And if not, how do I tell her that she can't use my cordless vacuum cleaner? I feel silly, but this is really bugging me. Please help. Hopefully soon, cleaning cordlessly. Katie.
Oh, you've got to have a conversation with her and address it up front.
Yeah, I think this is a communication moment, Katie. It sounds like some resentment has maybe built up a little bit. I suspect that this isn't really about the vacuum cleaner. It seems like it's about like a bunch of other things that include the vacuum cleaner. My feeling with vacuum cleaners, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, Rosianna, is that if somebody wants to use a vacuum cleaner in my house, they are welcome to.
No. If it's a Dyson, this is what I feel like she's implying. I feel like Katie is buying a Dyson cordless vacuum cleaner, which costs hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that like $5?
Not in this economy.
I guess what I mean is this. If someone would like to clean a mess in my home, they are welcome to. And I think it is a little weird if you have a vacuum cleaner in a 2-bedroom apartment and you're like, this vacuum cleaner only vacuums this half of the apartment because you wouldn't go halvesies on the vacuum cleaner. Like, it's probably technically within your rights, but I don't think it's going to lead to like a healthier roommate relationship.
But it will lead to you having an operating vacuum cleaner.
I guess, yeah, then they won't break your vacuum cleaner. That's the upside. The downside is that, like, people are going to come over to your apartment and be like, hey, so what's up with the weird line in the rug? And you'll be like, oh, no, I only clean this half of the apartment. And then I stare from my half of the apartment at my flatmate because they broke my cookie jar 14 years ago and I haven't gotten over it yet.
You seem to be saying like that's unreasonable. I think that's perfectly healthy.
I mean, I guess to be fair, it's been a long time since I was in a non-spousal roommate situation. But when I was, I'll tell you, I was so happy if anybody wanted to vacuum anything.
Like, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oh, man. The common rooms in my apartment were always very well kept, but my particular room was filthy. Not just messy, but actively dirty. Like 9-month-old remnants of Big Macs dirty.
God. Yeah. So maybe allow that person to borrow your vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a way through this. You sit down with your roommate and you say, okay, I understand you not wanting to go halvesies. Well, you don't really understand, but like, let's pretend you understand on this vacuum cleaner. Let's set some ground rules for how we're going to use this vacuum cleaner. Here are the ground rules.
I mean,
Is that too much?
that's it would,
Am I
like,
neurotic?
if you sat me down and you were like, we need to set out some ground rules for the vacuum cleaner use, I would be like, shut the front door.
I'm the worst flatmate.
If I want to use the vacuum, you're welcome. That would be my response.
On my first day living with Sana, we went around the kitchen and pointed out all the things that each other was allowed to use and not use.
Wow.
So they were a little intense.
I remember like 3 or 4 years after I moved out of my apartment with Shannon, she called me and she said, you know that white computer? And I was like, yeah, I remember that white computer. And she said, it's mine now. So
Different people.
yeah, yeah. You know, figure it out. Just communicate. That's the key. Okay, Rosianna, it's time for the news from Mars and AFC Wimbledon. I'll go first. AFC Wimbledon played Scunthorpe. It never gets old saying the word Scunthorpe. What is it like living in a country that has place names like Scunthorpe?
Well, you pass them on the train and you wave at them and then you ask, where are you from? And they say Scunthorpe.
Have you ever been to Scunthorpe?
I haven't, actually.
Well, it seems lovely based on the stadium. AFC Wimbledon lost 3-2, a scoreline that, based on my viewing of the game, rather flatters Wimbledon. The 2 goals that we scored were pretty good. Kwesi Appiah scored 1, Liam Trotter scored 1. Nice to see Liam Trotter get on the score sheet, but oh God, we gave up 3 really horrendous, frustrating goals. So now AFC Wimbledon are down to 16th in League One, 8 points after 8 games, a -5 goal differential. It looks like even though we have mostly different players from last year, at the moment at least, we have a similar team. The important thing is to stay up. That's all that really matters. I just want to stay up, get into the new stadium. 16th is a completely acceptable finish, but oh God, it would be nice to win a couple games.
Just feels better. Feels so much better when we win.
Yeah, it really does. The one thing that I will say is that Sunderland, despite having a parachute payment from being in the Premier League 2 years ago, that is something like 35 times larger than AFC Wimbledon's entire